Welcome, welcome, Wise Chat. It's Wednesday, June 12th. This is producer Henry saying thank you for joining us for Wisecrack Live. Go ahead and get cozy, lick the stream. Mike will be with us in just a moment. I saw the Kurtz video in my Rex, but I haven't checked it out. Actually, yes, we were checked last Monday, and we in fact do not have a case of the Mondays if you were worried about what would happen if you lick the stem. Go ahead, like the stream. We'll give you good advice. We'll keep an eye out, and yes, we regularly stream and get stream tested. How many of you are eating Chick-fil-A for lunch right now, or were planning to? In fact, what's everybody doing for lunch? I, for one, might get some pad thai after all this. You know, when I indulge in my slop, I do love me some Raising Cane's. Actually, more than what are you eating, where are you eating? Are you on lunch break? Are you in a break room? Do you get to hang out in your office? Are you in a cafeteria? What's going on? What's your midday meal environment? No worries, Tactical Gaming Fool. The fun has yet to start.
Oh my God. Sorry. We're live, guys. We're live. We're really doing it. Sorry for the slight delay there, friends. Technical stuff, internet stuff, Google logging me out stuff, me snacking on D's nuts stuff. This stream's brought to you by D's nuts. But glad that we're here. We're finally together. What's up to everyone in the chat? Yeah, we're going to talk about child labor, which is a favorite topic of ours. Just in general, it brings us a lot of joy to talk about children that have to work. It's really fun to do. We had a really fun time Monday on our 10th anniversary stream. So if you didn't check that out and that sounds potentially interesting to you, please go check that out. We got into a lot of stuff. There was the most guest we've ever had, so that was pretty exciting. First, let's check in with producer Henry. Producer Henry, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty great. After last stream, there was some talk of the movie Hitman, so I went ahead and I checked that out, and it was very enjoyable. So that's been a pleasant little start to my week. And I'm going to visit some family for Father's Day weekend, so I'm looking forward to that.
Hell yeah. Sorry, just responding to a couple things. It's a busy week, guys. Over on my end. Wait, am I not there? Oh, no, I am there. Sorry. Busy week on our end. We have like corporate meetings this week. We have all the creative team, all the content people from all the different brands are in town, and we're talking, we're iterating, we're synergizing, we're developing, we're profit maximizing, all that sort of stuff. So very excited about it. It's actually not bad. So I get to meet up with the creative people from other parts of this company, and they're all pretty good people. So I like them. So I'm excited about that. If you're here, please like the stream. As always, you know that is the thing that helps us, because I'm oddly enough right now locked out of the Wisecrack Twitter account on my computer. And by locked out, I simply mean it just won't load. I'm going to quickly go share the link to that on our Twitter. So that's what I'm doing right here. And I'm letting you know what I'm doing, because I don't want you to think that I'm like, I don't know, subscribing to new OnlyFans or something like that while we're doing this. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Stream live now, but let everyone know how you're doing in the chat. I want to hear what everyone is up to so far this week. Okay, now we're good. Now the 4 people that know when we're live because of Twitter now know that we're live. Thank God. Okay, so stuff to talk about today. We're going to get into child labor stuff. We're going to talk about loneliness. We have some other stuff on the docket as well. But, little update on various things. Please do, if you haven't watched it yet. Last week's video is on anxiety. In particular, it's kind of offers us a philosophical reading of anxiety. We think about anxiety as a psychiatric disorder, or a neurological condition, which it is, but anxiety also has an existential meaning to it, and it's a kind of interesting one. And I think the philosophical take on anxiety is helpful. It doesn't mean that we're telling people like to throw away your Prozac because we're healing you forever, but it does talk about how from an existential perspective, anxiety is a useful and even necessary thing in the formation of our subjectivity. Now, if you watch that video and you think to yourself, daddy, I want more, well, happy Father's Day. But over on Patreon, on the Wisecrack University feed on our Patreon, I did a 30-minute video getting deeper into the anxiety stuff. So if you want more anxiety in your life, or more content about anxiety, please go check that out. We have links as always. I'll tell you more about it later, but just a reminder that our new stream partner is Yes Please Coffee. Here's a bag of their coffee right here. I show you this because I think it just looks good. Let the camera adjust. This is their Homestar Espresso Roast. I assume it's not an ode to Homestar Runner, but Yes Please Coffee, small coffee company, based here in Southern California, run by a small crew of very good people. It's not a corporation, it's not a conglomerate, it's not some money hungry capitalist institution using low quality coffee as a guise to eke as much profit as they can out of a struggling proletariat. No, it's just cool people that make like actual good coffee and they send it to your house. If you want to get some, you can use code Wisecrack for 20% off. I have a cup of it right here. And this cup actually, shout out to Kookaburra Coffee Shop in St. Augustine Beach, Florida. I threw open their parking lot once and got a coffee mug there. So that's my story. But we'll talk more about Yes Please later. If you are a person that drinks coffee, you're in the market for coffee, you like it a lot, order some Yes Please. We only get a kickback when you order, so this isn't something where they're paying me to say any of this. I really enjoy their coffee. I think it's fucking awesome. So do check it out. Before we get in for all the stuff, and LTO, I'm going to say it out loud. We're going to do some comments first. We'll then look at a really cool person on the internet who went on Twitter to talk about high school politics. So that'll be exciting. We'll start with comments. Is the first one that you have from Mopey? Yep. Cool. So this starts from last week's stream. Again, we read your comments. So feel free to leave comments on the stream. Of course, leave comments in all the videos. And because we'll try to do our advice segment at the end of the show, remember wisecracklive666@gmail.com. You can hit us up there, ask us anything, and we'll try our best. I got up at 6 a.m. today, and I'm feeling it, friends. So I think I'm going to need that yes, please, sooner rather than later. You know, and maybe yes, please, some cocaine in the coffee. I've never done cocaine, true story. If you've done cocaine, let us know in the chat and post the number of your drug dealer. Don't do that. You can let us know if you've done cocaine. I don't think you should. And I was talking to a friend last night about having drug conversations with my daughter as she gets older. It is Father's Day weekend. And yeah, I think my real plan is just to have a firm list of hey, these are things that you just don't do because you could die. And then here's a bunch of other stuff. Some of this stuff is fun. Some of it's not fun. I'll tell you about my experience with that stuff. Now enjoy 5th grade. So this comment from Moppy Moped says, or Mopey Moped, luckily here in Japan, shouts to Japan, in the cities anyway, restaurants and izakaya are still a very important third place for people to socialize. Food is very affordable even after inflation and very rarely disappointing. Yes, most restaurants here are small and specialized, so that might help as well. That sounds awesome. Henry, have you ever been to Japan?
No, I want to.
Yeah, I mean, either supposedly it's good to go right now because the dollar is strong there. That's what the kids are saying.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. But that sounds awesome. Yeah, like the idea. Oh, I just missed that. You guys, and sometimes I feel like I'm nostalgic for an era I never really got to live through. But the idea that 2 to 3 days a week after work, you would go to your neighborhood restaurant or izakaya and have some nice food, socialize, not pay too much for it. It sounds really great. Food's really expensive. And I do love that idea that in Japan, there's a specialization in cuisine. So a place just does 1 or 2 things really well. So yesterday, I'll tell you guys a story, and I'm curious what you think about this. And honestly, I just want you to tell me if you think I'm right. And Henry can weigh on this too. I recently had a restaurant take that was really bad, and a lot of you didn't like it. So I'm going to give you a food take of mine and see if this one's better. So people are in town for this meeting at our office. And yesterday, people wanted to break for lunch. And there's basically 2 options in this corporate plaza. There's a food truck in one area, and then there's a kind of shitty cafeteria thing. One of the places where you can get taquitos and chicken fingers and the monster burger and the chicken Caesar wrap, and it's all really expensive and it's just not very good. Now the food truck was a Baja fish taco style truck that and they did some non-fish things. It was mostly you can get shrimp tacos, fried fish tacos, grilled fish tacos, fish burritos, basically Mexican cuisine with seafood in it. I was like, we should get this, guys. And a lot of people from out of town, we're in Southern California, let's go to the fish taco truck. And I got outvoted. And I decided to be a team player, and rather than getting better food by myself, that I would go with the team to the kind of crappy food hall thing. I want to know, was I right? Henry, what do you do in that situation? Do you want to eat at the food hall that has a little bit of everything? Or do you go to the specialized taco truck?
I want to go to the taco truck.
Yeah,
Damn, the
sorry.
pressure is immense on this question for me, but like no, I mean I just don't the appeal of the two, I don't feel like I'd go to the fish truck.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt like real amateur hour stuff to me with some of the other people who were involved. Oh, sorry.
It
Um,
seems like a path I would avoid being within a situation where I don't know.
yeah,
I'm like what whoa how'd you end up with like wanting to go to like a food mall like that and
yeah.
like
I don't know. It's one of those things I think in life where we have to make those decisions. Do we like hang? And this will relate to some stuff we're going to talk about later. Actually, eating, loneliness, socialization. But yeah, do we get the thing we want and maybe eat alone, or do we get the thing that everyone else is doing? Looking back, I think
yeah.
the Hegelian synthesis of it all might have been I should have just waited, gotten my fish tacos. I was going to get the grilled fish tacos with a little pineapple salsa, um,
There's
and
so
then just
much sorry. There's so
no,
much
let's keep going.
there's so much non-appetite like questions of the context of like the moment for me like with this decision too. I'm like, well, like how was your day going? Is it like something where you feel you could have blown off the tasty meal and just been like whatever with it, or is it like you really need those tacos because you're having a shitty morning? Like how yeah, damn.
I mean, by one metric, I always need those tacos. But yeah, so I'll check the chat in a second. I'm curious what everyone's saying. I'm still looking at the comments right now, but that's where I was at. Today, I'm getting whatever I want for lunch because I went to the other place. I spent more than I would have spent on fish tacos. I got a chicken burrito that was very mid, and they put a bunch of sour cream in the box with it. And I was like, I don't want sour cream on my burrito because I'm not like a 19-year-old dude from Southeast Ohio. No offense if you're a 19-year-old dude from Southeast Ohio, but the people I think of that put sour cream on burritos are like college bros. Um, okay, this is from Obi-Wan Colnobi. Nice. I'm gonna be buying that coffee with a huge middle finger to Black Rifle Coffee. Do you know what Black Rifle Coffee is? Sounds
Uh
like an alt-right coffee brand or something.
yeah, it's reactionary coded coffee.
All right, cool. So yeah, don't buy that. Yes, please. They're not reactionary. I know they're not reactionary because they've watched this channel. They know what we do. They're cool. They get it. So, yeah, if you're drinking that, if you're off that alt-right coffee, say no to the alt-right and yes, please to yes, please coffee. This one's from MK Ultra. Good usernames on today's comments. I'm not saying if you have a good username, you're more likely to get your comment read, but I'm saying if you have a good username, you're more likely to draw positive attention to your comment with that username. Often, I feel like the save money tips from capitalists are often just do the same thing while isolating yourself from local community, i.e., don't build solidarity with people who have political power in the same place. Don't spend money going to a restaurant in your community. Stay home to eat. Don't do a weekly happy hour with your coworkers. Drink one or two at home. Don't do an outdoor hobby that congregates in a local park. Do hobby at home instead. This is great. And when we really think about this, and our big move, the thing we're doing together, I want to say, in this, I guess we're not officially at the halfway point of the year, but our summer theme here on Wisecrack Live is we're zooming out. We're looking at structural conditions. It's what we're doing. And when we really think about what it looks like, if we follow that advice to save money, don't eat out, eat at home. Don't go to the gym, work out at home with an online class. Don't go to happy hour. Buy yourself a 6-pack to drink alone at home. Don't do the hobby that's at the park. Don't go see the movie in the theaters, see it at home. Don't, go to the concert, watch a streaming thing instead. The end result of all of these decisions is that we become more isolated individuals, atomized in our homes. From our homes, we are then more likely to funnel our money into large conglomerates like streaming services and food delivery apps. And we're basically just setting ourselves up to be better workers because our existence will revolve way more around simply, uh, consuming just enough to go to work the next day. And it kind of means the teleology of our lives is oriented around that position. And I do think like I've had disagreements with friends before because I'm friends with some of those people who worked a ton in their 20s and early 30s and saved a lot of money. And some of them would say to me sometimes, like, hey, Michael, if you want to do better money wise, maybe go see music and comedy less. Maybe never eat out. Maybe never go to happy hour. And I know this is kind of reckless, and I'm sure some of you are better with money than me, but I did have this thought of just like, people die, you know? People die young sometimes. Sorry to break it to you. We don't all get to live till we're 87 years old. Um, and what would that feel like to spend my entire 20s doing nothing to save money for a retirement I might not get, you know? And I think there's that kind of more existential concern. And of course, there's also the concern of, do I want my entire existence to be oriented around preparing myself to be the ideal worker? You know what I'm saying, Henry?
Yeah. This is something I feel like, I don't know, this is something where I feel like I don't regret not being richer, or how I spent my
Mm.
20s, because like I don't know, I'm at a place where like what I can do for work has allowed me to like make my own schedule, and like there's comforts even if I'm not like a millionaire or anything like that.
Yeah. Um, and I even kind of think like, how do I phrase this? I think that we sometimes can undervalue happiness, and I know that sounds maybe corny, um, but
No, yeah,
I was
fully
having,
agree though.
yeah, I was having a talk with my, I'll put her business in the street, with my wife. Yeah, I got someone to marry me. It took a while. I struggled with relationships for a very long time. I didn't really have a meaningful relationship till I was about 27 years old. If you're in your 20s and you're struggling to have meaningful relationships and you're thinking like, I'm fucked forever, probably not. If I got there, you could too. That said, um, we're having a conversation and she's in a position where she does a lot of freelance work and was doing this balance of like, do I take on an amount of freelance work that will fill up, let's say if we have a bucket and the bucket is our time, the workup it'll fill almost the whole bucket. And the kind of conversation I had to have with her is like, at what point does all the work and all the money you get from it drown out time spent on creative pursuits? And my wife's a writer and a poet, or time spent going on hikes with friends, or like with our kid and all the sorts of stuff. And it's a really hard balance. And I know that like I have, sometimes to a detriment, that thought that doing the things that fill us up and make us happy and make us feel fulfilled end up making us like better friends, better partners, better parents. But it's hard, and it's hard that we have to make those decisions. So a great comment from MK Ultra. I honestly feel like we could do an entire stream just riffing off MK's Ultra's comment. Um, Obi-Wan Kenobi, 2 comments in one stream. You gotta think,
Didn't
producer
even
Henry.
realize I was doing that.
Wow. If you're out in Austin, you better take this man out for some sushi.
Goes well with what we
Um,
just read.
yeah, great comment curation, guys. Round of applause for producer Henry in the comments. Also, hey, if you haven't yet, like the stream, please. Like it. I'll say it. Numbers have been down in the last few weeks. Let's get them back up, because you want to see this bald dome. Uh, and I have to, because to be honest, I have to give a presentation later today where I tell people they should give us more money to do stuff. So I need numbers to be good. Personal anecdote: 2024 has been the year of no video game spending, no coffee, cafe, work, lunch spending. I'm 5 months in strong, but fuck, it sucks not having that little treat to add a silver lining to a dog shit work day. But my landlord has his bills I have to pay, so here we are. Yeah, I mean, we can end up in these situations. What I've done before is sometimes I'll make like charts and kind of do the math of like, where can I spend a little less here, and how can I have that go a longer way in other places? So hope there's ways we can all do that. This is from Mr. Mack, and it says, I totally share that fear that my friends are merely enduring my existence. At the beginning of the anxiety video, I talk about that. I had a fear for a while that my best friends didn't like me, and they were kind of hanging out with me because we were always friends. And once I told them that, and that's the day I learned that none of them have really deep anxiety, because they just thought it was a crazy thing for me to think. It was a time where I'm glad they thought that. Like, I'm glad they were like, Burns, that's batshit crazy. Uh, but now sometimes they look at me like, what sort of crazy thing is going on in there? Tommy Han USA says, my friends might be talking about me behind my back, but they are talking about me. I guess that's true. And then John, our buddy, this is from Monday stream, said, sad I missed the stream. It's not been fun lately. Glad I could catch us later. 100 more years, Spicy, Mike, and Co. Listen, we're going to try. We're going to try to stay around for 100 more years. But we did 10, and 10 is pretty good in the media landscape that we currently exist in. Let's see. I'm just catching up with the chat. Oh, my chat's old. Guys, my whole situation sucks today.
You are just
Uh,
out of sync with the algorithm and the web and the deity known as online today.
I am online is mad at me. I'm gonna reload the stream and see if I can like get updated on the comments. It's showing me a Cyndi Lauper commercial. I think if an artist has a farewell tour, they should get executed on the last date. I'm not trying to be like silly, but like if you're gonna make a whole show out of how your tour is like the last tour, it's the finale, you got to get executed at the end.
It has to be the end.
It has to be. It's just kind of messed up if it's not. Okay, before we really get cooking today and get into our main topics, let's pull up that insane Twitter thing. Oh, fuck, is it not going to load for me? Hold on, I'm going to make it work. Guys, computer is bad. You pull it up. I think if I put it in a private window, it'll work. Let's see. New private window. A window for your privates. It's a tiny window in your house that only your privates fit in. Okay. Cool. So, okay. So, yeah, we'll get it loaded. So, this is a thing that went viral-ish, and then the person went viral-ish. I mean, this was posted on TikTok, reposted here over on Twitter, and it's been viewed 13 million times in the past 48 hours. Do you want to give us a little context? I know that you've learned more about this young woman than I know, Henry. I think their name is Lilly.
So this Lilly lady dropped the N-word on some TikTok or something, talking about just dudes being broke or something, and then
You posted it earlier. I'm gonna see if I can find.
Yeah, and then she got fired, but like she was interviewed on InfoWars the other day, so someone controversial that can be like propped up through the right-wing personality machine, basically. But yeah, this is the rant that went viral, not the slurs one. That one
on Twitter,
that one you can't find.
Well, on Twitter, I guess this is deleted, but Henry had screenshots where she said, "Looking for a sponsor for AF Pack and Turning Point, because I'm a broke ass N-word." And then someone named Josh Denny, who looks like he's a very white guy, reposted it and said, "My N-word." And then she reposted someone, so she got fired from her job because of posting the N-word. And then someone named Jake Shields, they look like they do like fight training, said, "I'm glad I don't have a boss, so I can say the N-word, the F-word, or the R slur whenever I want." Is that why it's cool to not have a boss, so you can just walk around your house saying slurs all day?
The freest thing you can do.
It's just so boring. That's the thing, is like, if these people's idea of freedom is that they should say, if they like want to say the N-word, think about all the things you could do with your freedom, guys. You could explore your own identity, your sexuality, models of friendship and community. You could explore art. You could explore ideas. You can mix together culinary traditions, which aren't supposed to go together. You could change, social spaces, how we do transportation. You could think about science in new and free ways. You could, push the boundaries of art. And these people are mad that they don't get to say the N-word. There's something wrong with you. You're sick in the head. Something is broken. If the only thing that can get you off, if the only thing that makes you feel like you're alive is saying a slur, what are we doing? But let's watch this video that the N-word woman posted, which is not quite related to her using the N-word. Also, no, there's never been like a white person who makes arguments for why we should use the N-word who's like cool. Who's like a person that you'd ever want to hang out with. If there's exceptions, let me know. But let's watch this video from this super cool woman named Lilly, who seems like she has it all together. She does good hair, it looks like, so good for her. I'll compliment people that have different ideological structures than me. So we'll do our high-tech thing. I'll count down from 3. We'll hit play on 1. And all of us get ready. It's basically all of us who produce and watch this stream. She's about to personally attack all of us. So here we go. 3, 2, 1.
So all those nerds in high school, like the weird theater kids and the anime people, you know who I'm talking about, the people we didn't hang out with. So they've grown up now, and they're the ones making the laws. They're the Mark Zuckerbergs. They're the Faucis of the world, of fucking nerds. Those fucking dorks that never got laid in high school, and they got a major chip on their shoulder against the normies. That's why you see all these fat ass fucks making laws. Oh, you can be obese and anorexic. Okay, sure. They're the ones inventing clown world. They're the ones in media. They're the actors. You wonder why actors are so politically leftist? Oh, right. It's because they're loser theater kids. They're the theater kids who grew up, and now they're telling me and you what to think. They're telling me and you what to do, and they're making the laws in this country. Well, it's time to stand the fuck up and stop being scared. Like, why are we scared of these people? They were massive losers in high school, and they're massive losers today. It's time to put the motherfucking nerds back in their place, stand the fuck up, and speak.
We gotta put nerds in cages, theater kids in cages. Guys, a lot of thoughts here. A lot of thoughts. First of all, the notion that, this is why actors you think she's going to look Glenn Powell in the face and be like, you fucking nerd? You're going to walk up to Margot Robbie and be like, you fucking geek? You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of actors, are pretty cool looking. Let's just start with that. I like that the idea that every nerd and theater kid grows up to be fucking Fauci. That's great. They're still so mad at Fauci, guys. They're still so mad. And then these nerds that liked anime, anime.
What's the obesity anorexia law thing? That's complete gibberish to me.
All these virgins from high school grew up to make a law that said you can be fat and skinny at the same time because they're really into ideas. They explore paradox, the nature of logical inconsistencies that are consistent because of the fractured nature of reality. They're reading Hegel, they're reading Schelling, they're reading Lacan. They think things that go past the bounds of my conceptual orientation. She didn't quite mean that. But I don't know. I was a virgin in high school. I'll say it. Shout it out in the chat. If you were a virgin in high school, I like how someone said, I can fix her. I had 3 different friends post that today and just say, I could fix her. I can save her. I was like, I love it. Oh God. Yeah. People are. Yeah. And then the idea that these people make laws as well, that actors are making laws. I mean, in fairness, Ronald Reagan, I guess. Like the stream if you're a nerd. Like the stream if you too were a virgin in high school. Eric, my man, high school virgin. Let's go. Oh, first time, you don't say you were a virgin when you got to high school. That's letting us know that you're cool. I was a virgin when I got there, and when I left, I had sex 100 times. But wow. It's just wild. And this is but this person's real, guys. This isn't a person doing a funny thing. And I like that
she went on InfoWars and they were talking and they were just pretty much giving her a megaphone to blow a dog whistle through. But most of her talking points were pretty straightforward, poll tier, just reactionary. Oh, I'm the normal one. I just want the basic. Well, I mean, you heard the high school rant here. I don't want to reiterate the InfoWars stuff because it is just the whole appearing niceness stuff of fascism.
Yeah. But I mean, also too, this just says something about a certain political and social orientation that the people you hate, are let's, for lack of a better term, smart people and creative people. You know what I mean? People that want to hate nerds, right? I don't know. Do you like apps?
All the weakest people have the strongest conspiracy against me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's do you like people that put thought into things so that you can have things? when it comes to like theater kids, I bet this person has a Netflix account. And I bet they watch a lot of content. And I bet that content is largely acted out, written, produced. There's people that work on crews. There's people that edit and do visuals. These are probably a mix of theater kids and nerds. In a sense, if we can get psychoanalytic here, I think that Alan Malcolm says, I'm tempted to say this is also classic fascist rhetoric. The enemy is both obscenely powerful and absolutely weak. For sure, for sure. I mean, that's like the paradox. Yeah. People are mad that we're discussing this. Okay. Let's see. Do you even remember what you said in the video? That was just rage bait and you all fell for it. Okay, so in a sense, maybe, right? We do some rage bait, okay? I know that she wants nerds to talk about her, okay? But here's what we got to say. I do think the underlying logic of this, and people are getting at it, because here's what I think. I understand why you guys don't like rage bait. I do think the underlying fascist logic of this, and I almost think the sort of psychic resentment that leads to these positions kind of is worth talking about. And I do kind of think if we can use a rage baity thing as a way to talk about something, because, the point of now I'm discussing the discussing, we're getting a little meta here. But, we're not here to just say, haha, this thing is dumb. People really think like this, guys. Like this isn't just like one person said this and no one believes it. As Henry's pointed out before, this is someone that has some clout in a certain world. And listen, people, I guess, make money on the internet. We're watching a screen recording on someone else's account, so we're not really, repurposing that. But I think oh, go ahead, Henry.
I was gonna say we specifically went for the high school rant as well, because as I said, like the other stuff I didn't want to show because it is very much her just spouting fascist talking points in a very generic way that would be platforming them. Whereas this here, like the high school framing gets at how like American adults can get hooked into these ideologies through like this relatable structure because, after we've talked about cults on this show before and kind of like the waywardness of a lot of Americans post, public education, high school. Like high school is like the last familiar thing a lot of people have when it comes to like there being like a cultural monostructure in America. So seeing how that gets used to kind of, cultivate ideologies and political movements in adults is something I think worth looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something like interesting as well. I'll say this too. If you're someone who like hangs out on the stream a lot and you're really mad that we're talking about this, come back in 5 minutes. Now I have to talk about talking about it. So give us a second, let us talk about it, or just like truly come back in 5 minutes. Someone brought up engagement bait. Like, yeah, we do need engagement to stay alive. It is what it is. But so what's interesting, right? So Henry made this point that we don't want to show someone giving fascist talking points because that's, and again, like people are saying the discussion would be interesting if you said this. Y'all kind of aren't letting me get there. It's because I care too much about the chat and I like you too much. I like you guys too much. But so Henry makes this point. We're not going to show fascist stuff. We're going to show this seemingly goofy, funny thing. I think that's important because we all know someone's doing fascism or racism or classism or whatever when they do it in this super overt way, right? But sometimes we can laugh off things that are way more insidious and get at that underlying logic. And I think that like, first of all, that paradoxical element in which people have this resentment over the people that they find both insanely powerful and insanely weak is wild. We see this in a lot of the critiques of liberal Marxist, DEI, woke, whatever, or like academics. Like academics, the scariest people on the planet, gender studies professors, we need to lock them up. They're so scary, whatever. And they also barely have jobs. Most of them are adjuncts. Like they don't have financial or political influence, yada, yada, yada. And in the same way, like, there's this odd resentment sometimes And we're seeing this a lot right now in society where it's kind of like clouded in this sort of anti-intellectualism, anti-arts type thing. More and more people that have a foot in the world of fascism, they don't want you to read books. They don't want you to go to school. If you go to school, they want to have control over the school and what the school can teach. We don't want people to think too much. Because again, look at the programs that are getting attacked at universities. It tends to be humanities subjects, critical subjects, sociology, things like that. Look at what else people are cutting funding from left and right. The arts, like arts funding I think we don't talk about it enough because I know there's a lot of, I guess, more pressing issues happening. But like, Google like arts funding at American schools or whatever. It's real bad. And I don't know. FunGPT, I'm speaking fast today because I'm just trying to like get out ahead of the like, but you're not saying this, but you're not saying this. It's like, well, let me just say the thing, guys. And also, I don't take Adderall. I use a Ritalin-based ADHD medication. And you didn't even need to know that. Someone said the super chat was off topic. I actually missed it, and now I feel bad. Oh yeah, I think that's the same person who did a super chat recently that was kind of like said some wild stuff. Thanks for the money, but we're not saying wild stuff. If you say anything that's not wild, I'll totally say it. Well, like, and this is getting recklessly sort of psychoanalytic, but I do think there's a building resentment for a certain segment that and this is really reductive, guys. I'm intentionally being a bit reductive here. But there's a resentment, I do feel, in America, at least, from a certain segment of the fascist leaning right, that they are resentful, that they are not cool. And some of these people are people that were cool in high school, or they were like hot, or they're still hot or whatever. And as they get older, that hotness kind of doesn't matter. And I think there's a deep resentment that what made you cool in your regional southern high school does not translate to culture as a whole. I think in particular, when people get mad at the movies, like people that were fascist leaning got really mad at Barbie, right? Well, why are they mad at Barbie? Because like there was a thing that was kind of cool and people liked it a lot. And cool people made it and interesting people liked it. And there was ideas explored and that made people really mad, Let's see. Someone said call it schizoanalytic and it's less reductive. And kind of in the same way where like the more it becomes cool to be smart, the more that in culture. I mean, again, why do people do this weird review bombing thing on any movie or TV show that explores ideas in any serious way? Well, because that's annoying. And it's annoying that you want me to think. It's annoying especially that we want a culture or a media that doesn't stagnate and has some sort of like intellectual advancement to it. Let's see, and there's been a lot written in the years about fascist and aesthetics. Chris Maverick says, I'm not being reductive. Thank you, Chris. You said some because, say, with Shapiro, yeah, the whole thing is mad that he's not cool. For sure, there was a really good, Some More News video that was about lady ballers. Like the first half of the video they made was about the Daily Wire and how all the people that founded the Daily Wire are kind of just like failed artists. They're people that wanted to be creative, but they were bad at it. And one of the reasons they were bad at it, I'm going to use the quote that I always use. I say it way too much. I apologize in advance, but I love it. When Roger Ebert said, movies were machines for the making of empathy. I think all good art has the potential to be machines for the production of empathy. And that doesn't simply mean art makes us feel bad for other people. It's that art makes us step outside of the limits of our own subjectivity and feel a level of emotional understanding and connectivity to people that are not like us. It expands the bounds of what we consider to be the subjective world. It expands the bounds of who counts, who we think about. Oh, King's Pork Hall, good to see you. If you mean me by that, I'm incredibly, incredibly honored. And I think that like when we look at, and Mr. Demino says this, that conservative art is a paradox. Sorry. I mean, I think that you could say like, if the point of art is to expand our humanity, if the point of our art is to express specific human experiences that have universal appeal, if that's the point of art, then there is a paradox in saying, I want to produce art that is conservative, small c sense, to say that it is drawing boundaries around what is, saying what is in a specific way is what should be. That this shouldn't push your bounds. A piece of art that looks you in the eyes and just says like, everything you think is right. Do as you are currently doing. Do not expand the bounds of your consciousness, your subjectivity, your empathy. Like that is asking you to conserve, you know? But yeah, let's see.
I do think there is something to understanding the pursuit of coolness is something these people are like acculturated into, and that's kind of like the undergirding kind of like capitalist mechanism that's sort of engendered a lot of this is you know, the insecurity, the want to be cool, the need to be externally validated as cool in American culture.
Yeah. Well, and there's an interesting parallel to this, and I know that my buddy Sean Harriman, and also Kingsport Call, you're like the nicest dude, and I really appreciate you. I genuinely mean that a lot, man. But Sean will kind of get this. There's been a bunch of articles this week about how music tours are failing. People that have these arena tours can't, you know. And there was one in Billboard. And if you guys follow my personal Twitter, I posted some of this stuff. I'm there at Michael O. Burns. But there's one story that was basically like the music industry is now looking to jam bands to figure out how the fuck they're getting butts in seats, right? And it's a funny parallel because it's like J-Lo struggling to sell tickets, Justin Timberlake struggling to sell tickets. These like traditional pop artists that fit in the mold of what like a famous person is in America. And then they're like, but these bands that are just a bunch of like weird, mostly dudes that like don't dress cool, that don't look cool, and play for 3 hours and like improvise and stuff. People go to their concerts like 20 times in a year. They travel to go see them. It's really funny to see this because like to an extent, yeah, Sean Harriman's bringing that up. To an extent, it's a thing where like they don't get, and for Stephanie, you maybe you know things, who knows? But it's just really funny that it's like people don't understand anymore that a certain model of like what was cool or marketable, that people don't care about it, and that people maybe want something more authentic and interesting and things like that. And someone said not every artist can be Taylor. I mean, the interesting thing with Taylor Swift is even that like, even Taylor Swift is like, she does a different show most nights. She mixes up her sets. She interacts with the audience. Hallie talking about fish sticks. There you go. But, you know, I think people want like a realness and an organicity in their art and their culture that they're not getting from other places. So there you go. But yeah, that was our rage bait segment. And I do not apologize. And again, guys, I know there's a real fine line, I think, between falling for rage bait and platforming or whatever. I think there's a level in which we do have to take seriously the fact that people in our culture, in our world, and our friends and families think in certain ways, and that we can't simply act like all of that is stupid rage baity stuff. We sometimes have to seriously consider that people think a type of way, ask ourselves why they think that type of way for two reasons. One, to kind of like understand what's maybe coming down the pike, and two, to know that when we have friends that maybe fall for this stuff, we can talk to them. And someone wrote in an email last week or the week before that was just sort of like, you know, Mr. Domino, I really appreciate that. But, you know, people sometimes have that question of like, I have a friend that's falling down a weird pipeline, because we know that there's people on the internet and there's streamers and there's people on TikTok who are really good at getting people like worked up and making them feel like, yeah, I'm a victim and this person's right and the nerds are trying to ruin my life and da 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 da. And sometimes we need to have the tools when our friends maybe fall for that stuff to be like, maybe not, and here's why. And, you know, Chris Maverick says there's also a thing where the culture industry as a production industry has fallen into the assumption they are owed consumption. Hollywood is dealing with this too. Yes. No one is owed consumption.
Just on the question of like, oh, why are we watching this or platforming this? I don't know. The metric I've always ran with too, like for instance, when we've been told, "Oh, you're platforming Jordan Peterson," is like we have a smaller audience. We can't signal boost him.
Yeah.
If it's something like this where there's a considerable amount of views already, like it's out there, it's in the pop culture miasma. Like it does not need us to like give it a platform. Like it is us reacting to it.
Yeah, we're not putting the genie back in the bottle, so to speak. You know, so I think that's the important thing there. Here, I'm gonna talk about one thing, and then we'll pivot into our first main story of the day. But if you're just tuning in, you're here watching Wisecrack Live. It's Wednesday, June 12th. I'm Michael Burns, here as always with producer Henry, and here as always with the best chat and community on the gosh darn internet. So thank you everyone for being here. But before we really kick into it, someone said I'm talking fast. It might be because I am off that yes, please. Just a reminder as well that we are partnered right now on the stream with Yes Please Coffee. Yes, please. Henry's going to throw a link in the chat. We have a link in the description. Yes, Please is a local coffee roaster based here in Southern California. It's run by 4 people. 4. They make really good coffee. Truly, really good. I'm drinking some of it right now. I'm drinking their current blend. It's fucking rad coffee. It is. It's rad coffee. If you are a coffee drinker, if you're a friend of Wisecrack Live, order some of their coffee. It's good. They don't pay us. We get a little kickback if you order some coffee. But we're mostly just doing this because my goal is to partner with stuff that you like, that you use, that we all enjoy. So there you go. Check out Yes Please Coffee. Again, their bags look cool. They're translucent, so you can see that there's beans in them and not dead spiders. It's been a big issue recently. People have been buying bags of coffee, and it's actually a bunch of dried dead spiders. But as you can see, not dead spiders, actual coffee beans. And as you can see, I'm drinking it, and I'm happy. I would not be like that if I was drinking a elixir made out of dead spiders. So check out Yes Please. Link in the description. 20% off. Why not? But this, and I do think if you're outside of America, you can't get it though. So, oops. Sorry about that. Glad to see everyone here. A thing we wanted to talk about, and we made a video on the channel about this last year, is child labor. Oh boy. And Alley Cocktails does point out you get a cool zine with playlist with Yes Please. So I love zines. I wish Wisecrack could start a zine. Okay, so I gotta get the Business Insider thing on the 12-foot wall. So let me do that for myself. Is it 12-foot fence or 12-foot ladder? Sorry, Henry and I are on HomeDepot.com. Actually, I said that before I saw it pop up when you Google 12-foot ladder. The second thing is Home Depot selling you ladders. So child labor has been a thing we've talked about a lot, not because we like it, even though there's little children in the studio everywhere just with their hands in wires and sockets. I'm just kidding. It's been on the rise in America. We have a full video on it. We did a stream on it as well. And it's been a topic more and more recently because in a lot of states, they're pushing back or pulling back restrictions that kept children from working, that protected school hours for kids, all those things of that nature. And it's a thing right now where some companies are starting to fight back, but it's become a real political issue in America. If you're not in America, you're probably just like, what are they doing over there? They're having child labor debates in 2024 in America. Are they okay? Should we send them a care package? We don't need a care package. I almost made a joke about care packages that was really problematic and dealt with serious issues. If you want to guess in the chat what the care packages I was going to joke about are, I won't tell you that, but you could probably guess if you know me. But we saw a story this week that really caught our eye about a certain new type of child labor. We could call it a labor camp of sorts. That's right, labor camps. They're not just for bad people during bad times. They're happening right now in Louisiana at a Louisiana Chick-fil-A. Now, before we look at this article, I will say, in fairness, this is not a national Chick-fil-A program. This is not coming from Chick-fil-A corporate. It's happening at a specific Chick-fil-A location. So I don't want to yuck anyone's yum if your week's rough and the thing you're really looking forward to is going and grabbing a spicy sandwich combo with extra pickles and a Coke Zero, which if I had to go to Chick-fil-A, that's what I would get. And as always, like the show if you're here, it helps us a lot. Now, we'll look at this article. The headline is on Business Insider. Is Chick-fil-A in Louisiana is doing a $35 summer camp where kids see what it's like to work at the restaurant. I don't know if any of y'all went to camp as a kid. I only went to camp a couple times. I never went to camp where I got dropped off at a fast food restaurant in a parking lot. So, where's the article start? Okay, it says a Chick-fil-A restaurant in Hammond, Louisiana. If anyone is a Louisiana native, let us know what Hammond is like. Is hosting a summer camp for kids to get an inside look at the chain. Promoted for kids age 5 to 12, the event promises a behind-the-scenes view of what it's like to work at America's favorite quick service restaurant. And it's like, it's one thing if you know, when I was a young kid, we moved to Orlando when I was a kid. And at that point, I promise I'm going to thread this needle, guys. And I'm going to say some specifics that will really speak to the young Gen Xers and the older millennials amongst us. But when I was a kid, there was TV shows like Salute Your Shorts, Pete and Pete, Clarissa Explains It All, Double Dare, Family Double Dare, Guts, Legends of the Hidden Temple. And many of these shows were actually produced at Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida. And I had a babysitter. Her name was Lori. She was a bartender as well. My parents liked her at the bar because this is how I was raised, guys. My parents would find my babysitters at bars because they'd be out partying. And if they liked a bartender, this is real shit. They would be like, you should come take care of our kid. He's a good kid. You should come. What's your name? I love you. Come hang out. Just take care of the kid. Don't let him smoke a cigarette until he's 10. And Lori, my babysitter, who's actually very nice. Nice people obviously work at bars. That was a critique of my parents, not of service industry workers. But she was also like a production intern at Nickelodeon Studios. So I got a behind the scenes look at the making of a lot of great kids television shows. I even got to get slimed. That's what you want when you want a behind the scenes view. You know what I didn't want when I was 8 years old? I didn't want to go behind the fry station. You know, I didn't want to go behind the drive-through line. No, I wanted to see the set of Clarissa Explained It All. Shouts to Melissa Joan Hart, who's now far right. The restaurant said the roughly 180 reservations across 6 days were booked within a day being announced at a cost of $35 each. Someone who does math, what's 35 times 180? Wow, people are bringing up all that. I'm not good at math, but that's a lot of money, right? An earlier version of the event listing said that campers would learn dining room host and customer service skills, learn how to take a guest order, learn how to bag a guest order, tour the kitchen and box your own nuggets, and make your own ice cream cone or cup. That part sounds fun. Led to some backlash who said the camp sounds suspiciously like work. I mean, I'm pretty sure the initial pitch here is give us money and we'll teach your kid how to work and we'll make them do stuff. Now, I'm not going to overreact here and say that this is some horrific example. Thank you, Chris Maverick. It's $6,300. Aggro Crag. Oh my God. But you know, it's not the worst thing in the world. This isn't like the downfall of America. It's just really funny that they straight up advertised a work camp where children just go to work at Chick-fil-A like it was this cool thing. And there were some like news clips of this where parents were just like, we were so excited about this. We love going to Chick-fil-A. We're excited that our child is going to get to work there, yada, yada, yada. I mean, at that rate, if you're 12, just wait till you're 13 or 14 and get a job so they pay you.
Yeah,
like they train when you get the job, they'll train you and they'll pay you to get trained. Do it then. Do it when they pay you, not when you pay them.
I just don't know if my brain could handle like a 5-year-old serving me a chicken sandwich.
I don't know if I could handle sending my 5-year-old to a kitchen where there's like vats of hot grease. where the handle's at their head level.
What's the overlap between Chick-fil-A fans and TikTokers who are way too paranoid about their kids or themselves being kidnapped in a grocery store parking lot? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, it's funny too that like, and again, I'm going to make a broad generalization here, but it is interesting that there's like a contingent of people, and I'm confident that there is some overlap with the two groups I'm about to describe. Can I prove this empirically? I cannot, but I have an intuition. There's one group of people who's like, children are under attack. The schools are not safe. The teachers they have a liberal agenda and they can't go to the library because the drag queen's going to read a book to them. And there's everyone's a pedophile. This is horrible. And I think a lot of those same people are like, I want to send my kid to work in a kitchen with grease and knives. I'm just saying, like, is the issue that the kids aren't safe? You know, is that what the issue is? Is this what we want to do? I don't know. I'm curious how much food they get, though. I will say this. If I was a child, I'm sure some of you were like this. I loved to eat as a kid. You know, if you could eat $70 worth of Chick-fil-A food, you're coming out 35 on top. You know, you're putting 35 down to eat $70 of food. The article goes on to say an earlier version of the event listing said that campers would learn dining room host and customer service skills. Leading to some backlash on Facebook. The listing was later revised, and a company spokesperson told Business Insider the location is one of several across the U.S. that offer the 3-hour event. Another location in New Orleans has a camp scheduled as well. The idea started with a Houston area restaurant owner-operator 6 years ago and has grown so popular that this year's 200 spots sold out within 7 minutes. The spokesperson also said the event is not a corporate initiative. The restaurants do not profit directly from it, and no child performs the work of an employee at any time. Where's the money go then?
Yeah, hearing that it is a 3-hour event and not like a month-long camp does make me, less alarmist about it. But like, it's just such a dystopian ass to be like, instead of like expecting, going into work, getting paid, and like learning there, just like, hey, come work for us, give us money. Like, we need a quick 6,000.
Yeah. So the article ends with Louisiana labor laws required teenagers to be at least 14 to work. I mean, it's funny as well. It'd be funnier if it was ages 5 to 13, because then it would be like very explicit. This camp is for people just under the working age. But when it does come time for a summer job, former campers could do far worse than to work at Chick-fil-A, where they'd learn from the best in the business. Customers consistently give the chain top scores in order accuracy, food quality, staff friendliness, and the company is legendary for finding and cultivating a level of talent that is cut above a typical service business. What do you think the odds are that this article was at least partially written by AI?
Yeah, that last paragraph's kind of sus. Imagine just being like 13, 14, 15, applying for Chick-fil-A, and it's like, sorry, someone with the experience, like just not having enough prerequisite experience for an entry-level job like that.
Yeah, and I will say is I've never worked at Chick-fil-A. I have some friends that did growing up, and everyone kind of liked it who worked there. They said it was pretty chill. They do some like college funding stuff. So yeah, it's a lot. But someone said, so this was more rage advertising. Welcome to fucking Rage Bait Live. I'm getting distracted by all the stuff today. What was I going to say? But now I want to have a whole conversation about Business Insider and whether they do AI articles, because I love the idea that an article ends with like, but if kids were going to get jobs, they could do a lot worse than Chick-fil-A, the best in the business. And, with the child labor thing as well, one of those things where like, it's not bad for kids to have jobs at a certain age. They just need some level of worker protection while they're doing it. That seems safe and fair, right? What's up, Blondie? How you doing? So yeah, Rage Cracked is our new channel here. If you're just getting here, thanks so much for hanging out. We're talking about a lot of stuff today. As always, if you do a super chat and it doesn't say anything problematic, we'll read it and talk about it. If you want to be Lord of the Chat, it's just when you gift subs to other people. It's fun. It's just a fun thing to do. As always, you can check out our Patreon if you want to support what we're doing directly. Just put up a new video over on Patreon where I talk about anxiety not my own anxiety from a philosophical perspective for quite some time. So do check that out if you want. And as always, if you have questions for us, if you want advice, if you have thoughts about the show, if you have topics you want us to discuss, hit us up at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Fun announcement as well. While you're here, guys, please like the stream if you haven't. On Monday, we're doing a special Monday stream. We're going to talk about the top movie dads of all time. If you want to do TV, you could as well. We have some special guests coming on. Guests from two pretty good movie podcasts. I'm not going to say their names. One of them has hosted 2 movie podcasts that you probably like. Another is the host of one of the top horror movie podcasts in the world. It's going to be hard for me to pick dads because I have so many of them. Drift King. I hear it's raining a lot in Florida, so be careful, man. Be careful. But we would love to know who your favorite movie dads are. So hit us up at wisecracklive666, and you can tell us. So I'm excited to have that conversation with you all. So come on Monday, ready to do that. Ready to do it. Like the stream if you have a favorite movie dad. Henry, are there any movie dads that come to your mind? When I just say movie dad. And if not, it's totally okay. Don't force it. But any movie dads?
None immediately come to mind. I have some dad characters, like I'm thinking of the Night of the Hunter dad, but like I don't think he's necessarily a good dad for what he imparts on his kid.
Yeah. Jack Esposito did send a super chat and said, Saint Justin Martyr believed the Greek philosophy helped Christians think about their faith more critically. What do you think about that? Good question. Sorry I ignored this earlier, Jack. I think that when you look at Christian theology, it's necessarily connected to Greek philosophy. I'll give you 2 simple examples. I think the rest of you will be interested in this. Because whenever I apologize for doing philosophy stuff, you say, shut up, do the philosophy stuff. You look at Augustine, St. Augustine, great place in Florida. His theology is largely based on a theological reinterpretation of Plato's Republic. Plato talks about the good. The good is the thing which facilitates knowledge and virtue. Aristotle makes it God. God is this thing that illuminates our knowledge, yada, yada. Thomas Aquinas, another big guy, that was my patron saint when I got confirmed, shouts to him. He built off the philosophy of Aristotle. So I think there's a reason that a lot of people that grow up in religious traditions, I can only speak to my personal experience of Catholicism and Christianity, get into philosophy because there is a lot of inherent philosophical structure in theology. So I think it gets people into some of that stuff. So there you go. We already got some good dads popping up.
Yeah,
I can think of
one did come to mind.
Oh, who do you got?
Pa Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life.
Ooh. Good one. Someone said Liam Neeson from Taken. As a father of a daughter, yes, that's my model. Talk about all-time worst movie dads. How about Kevin McAllister's dad from Home Alone? That guy, because at least Catherine O'Hara, the mother, seems to care. You know? But the dad in Home Alone seems like he does not give a shit.
Yeah, he has no presence in my mind, and I remember the mom, so he made himself invisible in that situation.
Yeah. So let's shift over. We're going to shift to another topic today. And Henry, maybe while I get started in this, if you want to switch the thumb to the other thing, and I will change the title to reflect that. Sorry, guys. We're just going to chase. I promise our next topic is not rage bait. So a thing we want to bring up. So there's an article in the Atlantic, and I'll start with this. A thing that I think like we've been talking about recently in general is this notion that loneliness is real. You know, I'll say this. No one has to get too vulnerable in the chat if you don't want to. But I think it's fair to say that a lot of us are lonely, that loneliness is becoming a sort of epidemic, you know? We've talked last week and this week about the lack of third spaces, the lack of places to hang out together, the lack of places to eat out, to get a drink, to get a coffee, all these sorts of things, and the effect it's having on us. And one thing we've been talking about as well is the idea that more and more we're kind of told to like not eat avocado toast and stay inside and save money and stuff like that. Yeah, it's sleepy bait. If the first segment today was rage bait to get your blood pressure up, now we just want to put you to sleep. We just want to talk you off so you can be really relaxed. And thank you, Mr.
Talk me off.
Talk me off what, Papa? So, there's an article in the Atlantic that's interesting, and they actually changed the title a few times. When we first pulled this article, the title had something to do with loneliness, and then they did the classic online content thing of switching the title, which I cannot hate on them for. But the title is Why Dining Rooms Are Disappearing from American Homes. Maybe let's get started. Who has a separate dining area in their home or a dining table? I'm very curious if people want to talk, if people have dining rooms.
Yes.
I did not till a month ago. My old apartment, we like had a table, but we didn't really have room for it to be a full dining area. And so we're often, me and my wife took turns working. So we didn't really have the thing there. Yeah, I mean, Drift King says something interesting. His loneliness, totally agreed. Married 2 kids and it still sucks ass some of the time. Yeah, I mean, I think loneliness is one of those things too, where like you could have roommates or a spouse or kids and still be lonely. I don't know. I'm trying to articulate this. Sometimes I think we all have different understandings of loneliness. There's like 2 types of loneliness that I think I experience. One is the loneliness of not feeling like you have people that share your interest, if that makes sense, right? I think it can be kind of lonely and isolating, whether it's you're into a certain type of game or movie or music or art. There's times where you want to share that enthusiasm. And if you don't have people to share that enthusiasm with, that can lead to loneliness. I've experienced that. I think another type of loneliness that I've had at times in life is like that feeling like maybe you don't have people that you can just hit up to hang. And I think especially as one gets older, I know there's a lot of talk as well about a sort of epidemic of older dudes, especially getting lonely. Speaking of older dudes, Eddie just shouted out Wilco and their song How to Fight Loneliness. Great song, great band. There's also a good Jonathan Franzen essay, a series of essays called, I think, like How to Be Alone or something. But yeah, I feel like that's another thing, that feeling of like, if you can't just hit someone up to hang, that can feel sort of lonely. I don't want to make people bummed, but if you want to describe loneliness that you've experienced or what it feels like for you, curious to hear it in an empathetic way. Another reminder, if you have any thoughts or questions, hit us up at Wisecrack Live 666. G Hint says all married friends with kids sucks. It's tough too. Like I've experienced that recently. Since I've had a kid, I feel like I'm a less good friend sometimes, which is a very bad feeling to have. Okay, so this article, we're not going to listen to it. It says the dining room is the closest thing the American home has to an appendix, a dispensable feature that served some more important function at an earlier stage of architectural evolution. Many of them sit gathering dust, patiently waiting the next dinner holiday on Easter or Thanksgiving. We'll talk about this more later, but like, you know, I think a reason when I think back to times of my life or times of history where people were less lonely, and I'm doing a lot of projections onto the past on today's stream, but I remember growing up, especially when we lived in Illinois where all my family is, we just like did a lot of stuff together. People were always at each other's houses, like popping in, popping by, having dinners. And there was something about that was a very good vibe. Says that's why the classic walled-off dining room is getting harder to find in new single-family houses. It won't be missed by many. Americans now tend to eat in spaces that double as kitchens or living rooms. A small price to pay for making the most out of their square footage. But in many new apartments, even a space to put a table and chairs is absent. I've lived in a bunch of those places. Eating is relegated to couches and bedrooms, and hosting a meal has become virtually impossible. This isn't simply a response to consumer preferences. The housing crisis and the arbitrary regulations that fuel it is killing off places to eat, whether we like it or not. If dining space keeps dying, the U.S. might not have a chance to get it back. I mean, shout out everyone who eats on the couch a lot. There's times where my partner has gotten mad because we just like eat on the couch. And I think there's a few things that eat on the couch, right? Like in one way, eating on the couch let's just think of it, and this is going to be pretty basic, from the social geography, right? If I was right now, if I was on the couch and I was eating and I was watching you, watching me, watching you, and someone was sitting here with me, we're not looking at each other, right? We're not communicating over the meal. Where is our attention going? Let's get phenomenological. Shout out to Edmund Husserl, Maurice Merleau-Ponty, Heidegger, even though he's a Nazi. To get phenomenological, where does our attention reside if we're eating on the couch? Well, normally if we're on the couch, there's a TV in front of us. If it's off, we're still kind of drawn to it because we know that in a room with a TV, our attention is drawn towards that object. But we're often going to put it on. So now I'm eating a meal with a human being sitting next to me, and both of us are caught up in the gaze of a glowing screen that's producing some sort of content, likely some form of advertising. So our meal time, a time that could be a breaking bread, a communicating, a gathering, a sharing of stories, ideas, talking about how our days went, collaborating in a human way, our subjectivity is separated and mediated via the screen that we're paying attention to. You know? And then, of course, if that's how we regularly eat, we're probably less likely to have friends over or to think of eating as a communal thing. Maybe at a certain point, we even consciously or unconsciously start eating meals and foods that are more conducive to eating that way, to eating like, has anyone ever done this where you're like hunched over the table?
Because the coffee something that you could just throw in a bowl.
Yeah, like I realized at a certain point, like, why is every meal I make just like a bowl of stuff? Not to say the bowls of stuff are bad, but it then creates the cycle sometimes where we can we spend all day, we do our work, we're maybe on our screens or something like that, and we sit down to eat, and then we stare at our screen a little bit more before we go to bed, and we get in bed and we stare at the screen for a few minutes before we pass out. We'll get back to the article, but I think, it's interesting to just think about this, to think about the, the subtle meaning behind the way that we eat. It says the apex predator of the dining room is the great room, a combined living room and kitchen, bridged by an open dining space. It's not that Americans don't want dining rooms, it's that they want something else, and that takes up the space. Okay. I'm not a homeowner, not in a position to be a homeowner, so I don't know. According to surveys in 2015 and 16, let's see, 86% of households want a combined kitchen and dining room, a preference accommodated by only 75% of new homes. The transition from the classic dining room to the great room mirrors the changes in gender norms and family formations that have occurred over the past 125 years. The dining room emerged when there was migrant laborers as servants. So I guess if we want dining rooms, we're bad people. Blah, blah, blah. And households where servants were unaffordable, domestic work fell to women. Separate dining rooms and kitchens reinforced that segregation. If a dining space is merging with other rooms in a single family home, it's vanishing altogether from newly constructed apartments. I think apartments especially. And this next quote says, for the most...
Reconnecting? Okay, we're back.
Okay, sorry about that.
Sorry,
friends.
We had to Netflix and chill.
Yeah, we were busy Netflixing and chilling in. But we're still talking about the same thing. The reason the dining room is disappearing is that we are allocating our limited space to bedrooms and walk-in closets. Even though we're dining at home more and more, many new apartments offer only a kitchen island. I mean, that's the thing too. It's like at the same time, think about this, right? We eat at home more than ever before. Going out to eat's expensive. There's less restaurants. We work at home more than ever before. And at the same time, our places are getting smaller. I mean, think about how homebound we are, sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know. And how much, I know we're kind of threading a lot of different half ideas together today, but there is a sense where our whole life becomes oriented around the home in a way that precludes participating in communities and other businesses, and even precludes inviting people over. Because I do think the more our homes turn into our offices, the more our homes become these little condensed places of production, I feel like the less conducive they are to being gathering spaces, places we invite people over. Let us know in the chat if you're one of those people who like host people a lot. I think that's very
Come
cool.
hang, yeah.
Yeah. Skipping ahead a little bit, it says as households and dining spaces have contracted, the number of people eating alone has grown. According to a 2015 report, nearly half the time we spend eating is spent in isolation. A central factor in America's loneliness epidemic and a correlate to a range of physical and mental health problems. You know what rips, guys? Eating food with other people. It's just fun. Maybe you don't think it's fun. If you don't think it's fun, like the stream. If you do think it's fun, like the stream. But, last night, my wife and I had a couple friends over because we have a little more space in our new place. And it's really nice to sit outside with a couple friends, have snacks, talk about the mundanity of each other's days, just be around other people. King's Pork Call is like, let's come over and smoke. That's always fun as well. But man, it feels good. It feels good to be a part of human community. It feels good to host people. But sometimes it's hard to do so when there's no room to host them. I know that I used to want to host more, and I lived in a place that was too small to do it. So it goes on to say, do we want to live this way? Well, it's a chicken and egg problem, Fajan said. How many more dinners would be shared if we had the space to host guests? Stephen Smith doesn't buy the death of dining space as purely a function of preferences. In most cities, building codes mandate double-loaded corridors, or 2 rows of apartments along a hall, making larger units difficult to build. When you can only build small apartments with one wall of windows, rooms will naturally disappear. No one wants a dining room without a window. In cities across the country, let's see, apartments are shrinking. Even as single-family homes continue to grow. The difference is that many of the former are subject to arbitrary zoning laws. Blah, blah, blah. Combine an acute housing shortage with tight zoning rules, and you end up with a lot of tiny apartments and few dining rooms. In an age when Americans are spending less and less time with one another, a table and some chairs could be just what we need. For what it's worth, scientists have begun to think that the appendix does have a use as a reservoir for healthy gut bacteria. Dining rooms should be so lucky. That was a weird pivot with the gut bacteria thing, but shouts to everyone's microbiomes. But yeah, I think hanging out more, would be a good social change. We did something cool last week. You'll see it soon. I'll tell you guys what it is. We're making some stuff with Yellow Dot. That's Adam McKay's climate-based production studio. They're a nonprofit, and they make stuff about the climate catastrophe, some would say, or hoax, others would say. And I got to sit down for an interview with their executive director. And what's up, Long and Pork? And we talked about the importance of, like, in terms of the climate stuff, the importance of, like, hanging out with people physically, doing things together, and the way in which that can build up our individual and collective subjectivity. And this kind of reminds me of that. I think back to times in human history where people did stuff, whether that's created new types of art or music, they were often together, exploring things together. If we think about politics, movements for various forms of justice, they often involve people hanging out together, doing things collectively, talking about ideas. I think a lot of this just taps into the atomization that we experience in modern life, which isn't the best. Did we get cut off again?
No, we're here.
Oh, I just saw someone say, "Oh no."
Oh yeah, I saw that.
RIP.
Oh no, and yeah, what's happening?
What is happening? So I don't know. Got lost in the chat and zoned out. Okay. But yeah, I don't know. What if we had someone whose job was tables, And if their whole job was tables, they could help with this.
I do wonder how much anxiety over communal living is kind of, unwarranted, or how many people who would, maybe have fun at a cafe or a mess hall have just been kind of socialized to be paranoid of the outside. Like, thinking of like the fear of communism and collectivism that gets like bred in, like, conditioned into a lot of like right leaning or reactionary or capitalist leaning people who are scared of like, oh, but then everything will be public property and everybody's gonna have to share everything. Guys, sometimes sharing can be fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're seeing like some of the effects of that deep down. I mean, in a sense, it's like trying to thread, again, a lot of threading the needle today. Um, but sort of, what happens when our primary telos as humans, the thing that we're aiming at, is a certain level of like individual proficiency and productivity, because often as workers, we're thought of in an individual way.
Yeah, like what is our
And
permitted like visible social function? What can we signal that we're doing in society besides working?
yeah, um, Eddie said something mushy in the chat, so let's bully him for having feelings. I'm kidding. Eddie said, I feel like a lot of the regulars in the chat are here because they found a genuine community. I feel that way, y'all. I feel like it's nice that we have, I mean, I really appreciate that enough of you show up that we can justify having these conversations and having it with some level of earnestness. I feel like sometimes, especially with the streaming space, it's easy to fall into a level of performative cynicism and criticism. Not that there's anyone who does things like that, but I think it's nice to try to have a level of a positive community. A community where we want to do stuff to make our lives and the lives of others better. Not a community where I'm like, hey guys, let's do a group kill together. But I think there is a Wisecrack Discord, Eric. I think for like I think for $5 you get on the Discord. That sounds like a lot. I'm genuinely sorry. But you also get all the videos early with no ads and stuff like that. If you are a patron and you haven't gotten on the Discord yet, you can do it. Feelings are good. But yeah, so I think, Henry was saying this a second ago, we kind of see all the downstream effects that happen when we view ourselves primarily as like atomized, separate individuals whose goal is to prepare ourselves for a life of productivity and who are viewed as valuable in light of that world of productivity and accumulation, right? Maybe it is 3 Persephone. I'm not a businessman. I'm a business man. And I think, this starts to affect how we live, what we do in our free time, and even how we view our free time. I don't know. Does anyone follow? I'm going to try to find the account right now so I can accurately give props where props are due. There's a guy on Instagram. What's his account name? Oh yeah, Tom. They don't follow Tom Fell, or name being Tom Hell. He makes. Let's see. I'm gonna post a video in the chat. Actually, I'm not, because I don't want to get into. Yeah, Tomb Hell. Um, this guy makes really good videos. I think a lot of you would like it a lot. I think his Instagram username is Tom Fell, but then it says Tomb Hell. He's a comedian, writer, and work from home desk jockey in LA. And he makes a lot of videos about work and life. And he made one recently. I think it's his most recent video. He posted it 2 days ago. And it's about getting back from vacation and realizing that one's humanity isn't primarily oriented around work. That sometimes when we go on vacation, we get back in touch with our humanity. And I really like that video. I actually had the thought, I wonder if he would come on stream. It'd be fun to have some people that make anti-work comedy come on here and talk about stuff like that. Yeah, so if you guys don't follow that person, go follow them. I think they make stuff that you all would like and enjoy. And, I think as well, there's the boring tendency to want to like critique society or critique neoliberalism or critique capitalism in a way that can feel a little immature if we're just like, this is bad. We don't want to work. We just want to hang out forever. Give us money, government. Yeah, I get it. But I think what we're saying today, what we're kind of getting into via a lot of different topics, is the issue is less kind of what we're doing, but more why we're doing it. The issue is more, what is society oriented around? How are our lives oriented? How do we think about the purpose of our lives? How do we view ourselves? How do we establish value? All these sorts of things. I think they're important. Mr. Domino said something like, nature doesn't care about anything. But that's important, right? It's important that nature doesn't care about anything. Because often what we try to do is ground certain principles in nature. We use nature as like an excuse. So it's like, nature is productive. In nature, there are hierarchies. I wonder who thinks like this. I don't want to platform any up-and-coming thinkers, but Jordan Peterson says stuff like this, where, in nature, we see biological hierarchies. In nature, there is survival of the fittest. In nature, animals have to produce to survive so that, we can then use that to provide some sort of proof text for human relations. But that's not true. It's not true at all. Often the way we even understand nature involves the projection of human society and structures onto natural systems that are way messier and weirder than we think they are. In fact, nature isn't really natural. You know what I mean? When we say natural, we often mean something is like teleologically necessary. But in fact, a lot of good philosophers, some good natural scientists will talk about this. There's not really a necessity at the heart of anything. If anything, we have contingency, a certain sense of chaos. Shouts to Dr. Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park 1. And it's maybe scarier, and this also touches on like existentialism. It's scary for there to not be some sense of nature or meaning that's consistent, that gives us a consistent narrative when we think all the way down. But I want to say the philosopher Adrian Johnston has talked about this. He's used a phrase kind of like this, like that nature denatures itself. Which I know sounds crazy, guys, but the point of saying that is that nature itself denaturalizes. Nature itself acts weird, and weird things happen. Pretty wild and pretty fun. I was going to see really quickly if Adrian Johnson had any good like lectures online. Maybe I should try to get him. I haven't really had any philosophers on stream in a while. Maybe we should try that. I see that he's actually gone on some people's streams.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get him.
Yeah. But and this is something, we're writing a video this week that's kind of on Trump, our number one man.
Oh.
Cantified, thanks for being here. But the video is basically like on this question of, is it a big deal that Trump got convicted for stuff? Is it bad? I'll read you a quote from that script. This is how Stormy Daniels described her sexual relationship with Donald Trump. I swear to God, this is a quote I'm reading. It was like getting fucked by a guy with Yeti pubes and a dick like the mushroom character in Mario Kart. It may have been the least impressive sex I'd ever had, but clearly he didn't share that opinion. Getting fucked by a guy with Yeti pubes and a dick like the mushroom character in Mario Kart. Amazing. But in writing and talking about his video, right, there's a way in which we want to exceptionalize something like a president being illegal or acting bad. But by exceptionalizing that, we're then inherently presupposing that there's some sort of like natural order of law that it's the exception to. I'm sure some of you have read Giorgio Agamben before. He's an Italian philosopher. And the thing that Agamben writes about is the state of exception. Now, we have a full video coming out about this. So if it doesn't make sense, you can check that video out. But a thing that Agamben argues is that basically all law, all systems of government are grounded in exceptions. And that exception, it can go two of many ways. But one of the exceptions, of course, is like the ruler is accepted from the law they created. So we have leaders and governments that create laws, but then they themselves are exceptions to that law. We also do things in society where we have laws that we often ground in nature and necessity, but then there's people who are accepted from that. So like think back to fun times in history like Guantanamo Bay, right? Where America basically says we value human rights except for these people. Now in a lot of discussions of geopolitics, like last week when 4 hostages were rescued from Rafah, a lot of the discussion was like 4 hostages were rescued, but like something like 279 Gazans were killed. But people were like, yeah, but they don't count, right? They're the exception. And we create these zones then where like a government, in this case, we could say like Israel, the IDF, gets to act exceptionally. And then they make a group of people the exception to, their Western humanist values. And how did I get onto this train of thought?
Exceptions defining history.
Yes, exceptions defining history. So basically, what Agamben eventually says is the key to solving this problem isn't to say, the exception's wrong, and actually there is this consistent ground of nature. There's a consistent place where law comes from. It's to say instead that the exception goes all the way down. There is no magical point where it all makes sense. There's no magical ground of legality where we can derive all of our laws from. And again, that is not to say that nothing means anything. It's to say that ways of thinking and concepts of thought cannot be naturalized in a way that allows us to justify them uncritically. So, I'll probably say your name wrong, so I'm sorry, friend. Bothley in the chat says that's why we need Kant's way of being a good person. I always come back to like, in a worst case scenario, people just kind of like fucked with Immanuel Kant a little bit more. Kant, K-A-N-T. I didn't say the other thing. I probably talk about Kant too much as well, but Kant basically says act in such a way that we'd want whatever we do to be a universal law, and treat human beings never as a means to an end, but as ends in themselves. So if you're ever wondering, okay, I'll calm down. I'm trying not to have a heart attack on stream, although that would be pretty funny if you guys got to watch me die. I don't know. That could be kind of interesting. Speaking of insane things in the world, let's pull this thing up really quickly. I almost forgot about this, Henry, which has to do with Uber. And, the real challenge I'm going to give myself now is, can we talk about this and can we thread the needle? Can we bring this all together, guys? Now,
I have
Henry
the tweet excerpt up.
Yeah. And do you know where this is excerpted from?
It's from a Bloomberg article. I was having trouble getting up on screen, but there's a longer article. Fine. I can link it in the chat.
Yeah, no, I like that. I wanted to say that so we could just tell people a source. They don't think we're just like cherry picking stuff. Okay,
sources on screen.
Great. This is from a Bloomberg article. And guys, keep me accountable. Let's see if I can thread the needle here. Last chance as well if you want advice. Wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Last chance for super chats. One of the more disturbing things that we saw in this and going through the research for the issue was a study out in Belgium. Shouts to anyone in Belgium, where they looked at Uber prices and they took 2 people in the same place going to the same destination and noticed that it charged more if the individual's phone battery was low. Uber was charging people more if their phone battery was low. And what they surmise is that that's a proxy. You're desperate. You need a ride pretty much right now because your battery is going to run out, and so we can charge you more. On that point, and I've talked to a University of Chicago economist that said, well, that might be a proxy for it's late in the night, but that's not the way they design the experiments. All I have to say is like, corporations are learning that they can take data, including how much battery is left in our phone, and use that to determine what we will pay for a good or a service. This is free market logic, and this is what happens when algorithms are used in that sense. We talk a lot about AI, and if you watch a commercial or a press conference about AI is going to make the world better. We're going to have to work less. Education is going to be better. Doctors are going to cure all the diseases. But look at how they are actually using it. It's being used to make shitty and dehuman content that often makes people, kills people's jobs, and figures out how to further dehumanize us in our day-to-day activities. Imagine a world where at any given point, any good or service you are trying to get, the price for that thing, they're factoring in demand, they're factoring in urgency, desperation, how much money you have, how much money you don't have, who you are, what you look like, all this sort of stuff. It's weird. And it's weird because at the end of the day, it's all prioritizing not your humanity or humanity as a collective enterprise, but it's prioritizing the gathering of profit. And that's scary, I think. I kind of don't like that. And of course, we know that, like, these are often structures and systems developed by people who don't use these services. Most people, I think, who are making these things happen probably don't rely on ride-sharing apps to do stuff. Now, Philip Gerba in the chat says, but haven't street vendors been doing that for thousands of years? I'm curious what people think about this. Isn't there a difference between, like, a street vendor is like, falafel's $5, and I'm like, come on, boss, and he's like, oh, for you, my friend, $3.50, and we're participating in a performance, right? The performance of, like, haggling. And in a lot of cultures, this is just like a thing that happens. It's a normal thing. It's an expected thing. And it's a financial interaction, but it's an interaction between individuals. What's weirder about this, in my mind, is that it's not a driver saying to a potential client, how much do you really need this ride, right? It's mediated by an algorithmic system. It's not a sort of negotiation between individuals. It's not a cultural performance. It doesn't involve, eye contact. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an on-the-spot exchange where two people are playing a confidence game. It is a unilateral, just like data inequality that's driving a pressure. Also, I mean, the whole reason we moved from bartering towards, like, fiat currency was to avoid any kind of, like, inconsistency, or, like, to have a fairer, easier exchange of goods and services that didn't have to rely on such subterfuge and systems, or at least reduced it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's weird to think about where this all ends. You guys want to see something that's going to feel cheap? I'll tell you who's not going to use algorithmic prices on you. Our friends over at Yes Please Coffee. Again, final reminder, Wisecrack Live partnering with Yes Please Coffee. You drink coffee, I drink coffee. We all drink coffee. They're a really cool brand based here in Southern California, run by 4 people. They're not using algorithms. They're not trying to trick you. They just make good coffee and they give it to you for a fair amount of money. And if you get it with us, you get 20% off. Use code Wisecrack. There's a link in the description. I've been drinking it this whole time. If you have been watching my energy on the stream and you think, like, I want to be off that, give me what he's having. If that's what you're thinking, then go to Yes Please, type in code Wisecrack, get you some coffee. There's not spiders in it. So we have some stuff. We have some advice things. Let's see. I'm going to kind of summarize one of the first emails we have. It's a little heavy, but I appreciate the earnestness of the person. And I would summarize the gist of this person's email as, we can have jobs sometimes that pay us enough and let us have the material conditions to live that make us feel really bad. And then sometimes we can work in jobs that make us feel really bad, but we also have the feeling that there's no other option, right? That if we leave this job that's maybe killing us, metaphorically or whatever, that will end up on the streets. And sometimes that can leave us feeling like we just want to tap out, And I'm gonna, I want to email this person as well. But it's a tough one. I'm sure some of us have been there, right? And had that general feeling of, can things get better? Is this all there is, And the easy thing to say here, from my perspective, is to give some anecdotal evidence and say, I have felt kind of like this. I know people who have felt kind of like this, and stuff can happen. To even relate back to what we're talking about, like, because nature isn't natural, because systems are always changing, things can happen differently. There's ways to transition careers. There's ways to think strategically. But I do think at the end of the day, for most of us in most cases, there's a potential joy and happiness we experience through being alive, and we experience through living our lives with others, that ultimately is worth it. Eddie in the chat, whoever wrote that, I know exactly what you're talking about. Hang in there. But, I just think at the end of the day, sticking it out is worth it. People don't regret that, we all, I think, sometimes have a fear of survival, a fear that the bottom is going to fall out. I have that as well. I've had partners with my conversation. I've had conversations with my partner recently that boil down to, like, if I lose my job or she loses her job, we probably have to leave California, because sometimes it does feel like that. But, FunGBT says, I've been there, tanked my career, bad things can happen, but after rock bottom, the only way is up. A lot of the stuff that one can say in this situation is going to sound like cliche, but most of it is true. Anything to add to this one, Henry?
I do not.
Yeah.
Again, it is the
it's a tough one.
cliche thing where I empathize. I've been there. Just, you don't know who's thinking about you or what's going to happen next, but you can keep trying. But I mean, yeah, it's all going to sound general from me. I don't feel really authoritative.
Yeah. Same. And all I'd say too is, like, we often underestimate the desire and the sort of kindness that people in our lives will give us. We underestimate our ability to reach out to people, and ask if they can talk. And we might underestimate their desire to want to listen to us and care. But people probably care a lot more than you think, because I'll tell you what we all share in common is we all feel a version of the alone, desperate, isolated thing sometimes. We've all been through it. So I'll try to email that person as well. But if you watch this, cliche stuff, but I think it's true stuff. And if you're watching live in the chat, I think you're seeing that people have been there as well. Another question from one of our buddies says, a month ago, I broke the golden handcuff, stopped working for the man, started my own thing. It's going okay. 4 weeks in, I'm optimistic. Now I have an offer to be acqui-hired. I didn't know that term. I guess hired into another company where I would get to do work that I love with cool people and even have an equity play. My first reaction was not yet, but the only reason I can verbalize for waiting is I want to see what I can build on my own. My wife thinks that's a dumb, egotistic response, and she's probably right. Should I jump on the opportunity or risk losing it by feeding my ego? What does the Wise fam think? So it seems like the options here, right? Our bud starting their own company, starting their own thing. Bigger Fish says, hey, bud, we'll pay you for your thing. We'll give you some equity. We'll take care of you. Do it as a part of this mothership. That's option A. Option B is a little riskier. Let's do it on our own and see what we can do. Option A, option B. If you're in the chat, you can let us know if you like A or B better there. 10 years ago, I think I would have said B. I kind of would want to say A right now.
Oh, I'm all B in this situation. Unless, like, what you're doing is a very, like, non-creative, dispassionate kind of, like, you trying to make it to sell it, kind of like a business.
Yeah.
I go with A. But if you're doing, like, your passion and there's something creative, and I'm not even saying artistically, it can be scientific if science is your passion, and, like, you want ownership over it, stick with B.
Yeah, you know what? I'm getting kind of convinced here too. if you're talented enough to make a thing that quickly someone wants, they probably want it because they see a long-term value in it.
Right.
Yeah. I'm coming around. I don't think A is not like a bad. You know what? This to me honestly sounds like two good options. One option has a little more certainty.
Yeah, again,
You know?
more context as far as like, is it something personal and passionate that you want to grow, or is it like, I'm going to do this thing, sell it, and retire early? Because, you can just flip
Yeah.
it if you don't care.
Yeah. I don't know. But you're not going to lose either way here. You're not going to lose either way. But yeah, that's tough. And we'd maybe have to know more like of how much they're giving you, what benefits you might get, stuff like that. But it is an interesting one. But I'm not worried about you because it sounds like you're good either way. Final thing we have this week. Someone says, I've had my working life end early due to an injury. Often feel left out of society because of the expectations of working and contributing. I'm a parent and I study, but I fight with feelings of not being enough. Any great philosophical advice for breaking free from the good old Protestant work ethic? Good news and bad news. Good news is internally, we can be aware of and know and structure our own life such that we know that our value is not tied to our labor for someone else. Our value is tied, a lot of different theories here. But you might say your value is tied to your ability to seek out goodness in yourself and others. Your value might be tied to your ability to seek justice in your own life and the life of your community. Your value can be tied to your pursuit of, intellectual curiosity and courage. Your value could be tied to creativity. Your value could be tied to being the best parent possible, the best friend possible. There's so many ways we can derive value that are not, I help increase shareholder value for people that wouldn't care if I lived or died, right? That's the good news. The bad news is the world doesn't care because the world and structures outside of you will still kind of tell you that your value is tied to work, that your value is tied to your increasing profit shares for shareholders, right? And I don't know. I kind of think maybe a thing here is figuring out, and I don't know what this person's injury is and what this could sort of limit them from doing. But I think like figuring out ways, whether it's in person or digitally, to be involved in a community, ways to contribute your passions and gifts to other people, to use those things you care about in your community. I don't know if other people have thoughts here, but I think it's a tough one because like the Protestant work ethic is real. It is a built-in mechanism of our society that you can't just get away from. And I think back to not the best movie ever, but one of my favorite movies ever, Office Space, where a character's name is Michael Bolton. And he kind of says, like, why should I have to change my name when he's the one who sucks ass? And it is that sense of sometimes you got to take ownership. And like, even if the world says that's Michael Bolton, you can just say, no, I am Michael Bolton, So trying to take ownership of the idea that you get to decide what's valuable. And then to remind yourself, it's like an emperor's, what's the thing? The emperor has no clothes. A reminder that anytime aspects of our culture do make you internalize a sense of guilt or not being good enough on the basis of work stuff, remind yourself, like, they're just doing that because it's better for them, better for a system, for you to feel like shit when you're not being exploited. Because it's bad for them when you are not being exploited, right? So if you don't need to work to have the money right now, that's okay. If you're actively not being exploited, that's great. If you're able to work in a way where you're not exploited, that's awesome. If you're getting exploited in a way where you at least can pay the bills, that's awesome. But it's that awareness of how things are. I was thinking, I've been thinking about that this week and like reading Agamben. Again, that sort of exception stuff. Like the point is that this shit goes all the way down. And when we have that awareness that at bottom, there's no natural necessity of law, and there's people developing systems on top of that they try to convince us are natural, when we break free of that, it can help. It can help, you know. I feel like there's a good Hillary Duff song about that. I'm only half joking. I feel like I'm forgetting some of the Hillary Duff songs now, but I was a big Lizzie McGuire head. So there you go. And I will say, more so than anything else, the theme of today's stream is it's a travesty that Disney did not go forward with the Lizzie McGuire reboot. The show would have been awesome. I respect Hillary Duff for standing her ground, because one of the reasons that they didn't make the show is because Hillary Duff was like, my character would be 35 now, and she would fuck. You know, she would be out here in these streets doing her thing with Gordo, with whoever. Maybe she's texting her friend Miranda from the show being like, yeah, got some life-changing dick last night. Let's talk about it. Because Hillary Duff wanted to represent life in a fair way. I think that show would have been very popular, but Disney was afraid. Sean points out How I Met Your Father. I loved it. I'm being dead serious. I loved How I Met Your Father. Why did I love it? We need low stakes, dumb sitcoms about friends who hang out. Why do we need those? Let's thread the whole fucking needle of this show today, guys.
30 episode seasons. Like,
we need these shows.
We need episodes that they had to fill a quota for.
Because we need to see shows where people just hang. We need shows about groups of friends that eat meals together. We need shows about friends that go to the bar together, because they help us. They help us realize that there's a collective imagination. Kingsport calls it showing your whiteness again. That might be one of my top 3 whitest takes. But when we watch these shows, they tell us, I can have that. I can have friends that I have stupid jokes with, that I hang out with, that I make mistakes with, that we go to the coffee shop together or whatever. You know? One might say, don't these shows just pacify us to sitting alone and feel like we're projecting our own lives into the lives of others? Sure, but you know what? If I learned one thing from the movie Hitman, it's that sometimes we can perform an identity that we want, and that will have a positive effect on us. I can't believe we didn't get to this earlier.
Yeah.
But Hitman was a really fun movie. Hitman, you know, first scene of that movie, I got Glenn Powell as a philosophy professor. I'm locked in. I was so incredibly locked in 30 seconds into that movie. So I would just say, if you have not watched Hitman, watch that movie. Hitman is funny, it's dumb, it's exciting, and it actually, at the end of the day, explores some really interesting ideas. It's a movie that I've seen a few people that are too smart for their own good criticize and like say is bad, but come on, guys. Come on. Do you want movies that are fun? Do we want people like Richard Linklater to get to make movies like this? Or do you want every movie to be goddamn Wolverine and Deadpool with 19 fucking corporate tie-ins? What do you want? I gotta stop.
It's fine. It's fine. To get back really quick to the Protestant guilt of the question, and to talk a bit about like entertaining yourself or imagining or contextualizing better, what's the worst that can happen if you call out of a day of work or you miss one thing, and how much violence isn't going to happen to you? Like, you're not going to be punished in a biblical way for, you know, missing a time punch, or for maybe taking a day to yourself. Hopefully not. But like a great plague, or a movie's not going to happen to you. I think we get conditioned with, you know, with our protagonist narratives to just have anxiety over consequences in a way that are extremely self-made and projected, and to take those consequences and hyperbolize them and just realize how much none of that's not going to happen for one simple, like, you know, say you call out for a day of work, or, you know, you flub on something else that you assigned responsibility to, that in the grand scheme of things wasn't that like big of a deal to miss. Just think about how silly it is that like you're not going to get attacked by wolves. Like, the hand of God's not going to come out of the sky and rip you off the freeway. I mean, you know, there's always, yeah.
I agree with everything. I'm going to share a story that I think is canon now, because I've told it a number of times. and it is that I had a job once. There was like a serious job. It was one of my first real serious jobs. And I went to work, and they didn't really tell me to do anything some days. So I just sat there at the computer. And one day I got up and I walked to a movie theater and I saw Captain Marvel. That tells you what year this happened. And I just saw the movie. I didn't look at Slack. I didn't do anything. The movie was probably a little over 2 hours. I walked back to the office. I went to my desk. I sat down. Nothing happened. No one noticed. I stared at the screen for a little bit longer. I played on Reddit. At that point, I was listening to a lot of episodes of the podcast, where it's like an Apple radio show, Time Crisis. I probably listened to some more Time Crisis. And I went home and nothing happened. And I'm not saying that in every case you can just get up and leave your job.
Right.
But I am telling you that the stakes are often lower than you think. And we have a super chat from Pandora 1, who we like way better than Pandora 2. Fuck Pandora 2. It says happy anniversary. Go ahead. Well, let me get the super chat. Yeah. It says happy anniversary. Thank you so much. We're 10. We're old enough to go to Chick-fil-A work camp. Thoughts on David Hume being the inspiration for the new Hunger Games? I didn't know this. I didn't know that Hume was the inspiration for the new Hunger Games. Pandora, there's an article about that. Let me know. I'm going to do a quick Google, where I Google Hunger Games, David Hume. But for the upcoming novel, she cites Scottish Enlightenment philosopher David Hume. I was inspired by David Hume's idea of implicit submission and the easiness with which the many are governed by the few. I find it interesting. I saw, there's an article about this. It came out 6 days ago. I'm going to look into this. It sounds interesting. I'm a big David Hume head. And Pandora 1, thank you so much for pointing that out to us. So we look for that. Oh, yeah. Fucking cool. Happy Pride to everyone who's out here. We really appreciate you. Have fun. Celebrate. Do what you want to do. Do what you want to do. Happy Pride. Have fun with it. Jack Esposito said, why is it called the Protestant work ethic? I'm Catholic, and my fellow Catholics work our ass off. I think it's because it was developed by German Protestants. I think largely there's a tie-in between the emergence of, I think maybe Lutheranism, but I might be off here, of German Protestant traditions and the rise of industrialism. So there was this kind of symbiosis of a certain type of theology and modern manufacturing. And then Max Weber described the Protestant work ethic as the spirit of capitalism, a German sociologist. So that's basically why. I think another thing, Jack, with Catholicism is that, let's end on some theology today. Certain brands of Protestantism put a lot more emphasis on the individual work of the soul in terms of salvation, so that salvation is tied to work, whereas Catholicism is historically way more tied to a kind of like grace-based salvation and notions like confession and forgiveness, such that one is baptized and confirmed and eats of the Eucharist. They're doing it. So something like that.
Yeah, Catholicism's there's like an acknowledgement that like everybody's doing something shameful, so hey, let's all sweep each other's stuff under the rug. Whereas like Protestantism, it's like, look, that guy's doing something shameful. I'm working better.
Yeah. So that's it. If you got emotes, use them. That's our version of smoke them if you got them. We're gonna wrap up again. Thanks again to our friends over at Yes Please. If you're looking for coffee, link in the description, or go to Yes Please website, YESPLZ, enter code Wisecrack for 20% off. It's legit good. I like it. I'm loving drinking it. My wife's been drinking it. She hasn't slept in 3 days. It's bad. I'm kidding. But check out that coffee if you want. Thanks to everyone in the chat, especially thanks to everyone who gave us super chats and everything. We really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone using pretty emotes. Allie Cattails making the chat look so gorgeous right now. Thanks to all our patrons. If you want to check out our Patreon, please do. It helps us. We totally understand if it's a lot of money and you don't have money. A lot of us don't have money. If you ever want to, we have a Patreon level where you give us $1 a month. I give you some free stuff every now and then as a way to say thanks. You don't get anything consistently. If you want to do it for a year, it works out to like $10.80. It's a way for you to just be like, hey, I like your content. I don't have to pay for it. Here's $1, and we appreciate it. Rob got the Peruvian single origin. He said it's genuinely so good. I love that, Rob. I love that for you. I want to try to grab Rob's comments so I can show our friends over there and say, hey, check it out. people like the coffee, and I keep trying to get it, and I can't get it. So it is what it is. But, you know, thank you for being here. Thanks to all our friends. Support to all our queer brothers and sisters and everyone during Pride Month. Really go for it, guys. Really go for it this Pride Month. Make people uncomfortable with how hard you party and celebrate yourself. Thanks to producer Henry. Monday, guys, big show.
We're going to talk dads.
Movie dads. Wisecrack Live 666. Hit us up on Discord. Hit us up on Twitter. Let us know your favorite movie dads ever. And we'll see you then. Thank you so much, guys. Catch you on Monday.
See you next week, y'all. Enjoy the weekend.